Well, hello, and welcome to another lesson of the Content Modeling Weekly course. I am Marcelo Lewin, the Headless Creator. As always, get a hold of me right there, Marcelo at headlesscreator.com. Send me an email, questions, feedback, comments, ideas to model. I'm always open to new ideas. I love doing content modeling. You guys know I'm a total content modeling geek, so just send me those ideas and I'll get to it. Today, I'm going to show you how to take the Headless CMS, regardless of which Headless CMS you are working on. They all allow you to store assets, but they're not digital asset management systems, right? Those systems allow you to store metadata and a whole bunch of stuff, information around an asset. With the Headless CMS, some have the ability to do that. Others are a bit more limited. Today, I'm going to show you how do we extend that asset to be able to hold a bunch of metadata and maybe even some image transformations. So I'll explain what all that means in just a minute. But as always, you know how this works. I will take just 2 seconds to tell you about headlesscreator.com. Go ahead and go register, get your free account. It's 100% free. You'll have access not only to the on-demand version of this lesson, which will appear in about an hour, but you also will have access to pretty much everything in the Content Modeling Weekly course, which I believe this is lesson 43. Yeah, 43 lessons with all the Miro boards. So you'll have access to all of that as well. And then, of course, you'll have access to every single other course, including all my focus on courses on different Headless CMSes and the Discover Headless Tech, which is both a course and a podcast. So go get your free account. Like I said, doesn't cost you much, but you'll have access to a bunch of stuff. Alrighty. So as you all know how this works, I'm going to go ahead and restart the intro because for the on-demand version, there is absolutely no marketing at all. Just go get your free account. That's all. But yeah, for the on-demand version, there's no marketing at all. So I'm going to restart the intro and we'll jump into the actual lesson. So I'll see you in just 10 seconds. Well, hello, and welcome to another lesson of the Content Modeling Weekly course. I am Marcelo Lewin, the Headless Creator. Get a hold of me right there, Marcelo at headlesscreator.com. Send me an email with questions, comments, feedback, or any ideas you have for content modeling. I'll put them in my queue, and we'll model them one of these days. So today I'm going to talk to you about the assets in a Headless CMS. Every Headless CMS has native assets. And how do we extend it to support more metadata to describe those assets? So that way you can turn your assets in a Headless CMS into more of a digital asset management system. Not completely, but a little bit more. So with that said, let's jump in. And I'm going to show you here. We're going to start by talking a little bit about each Headless CMS, and I'm covering 4 today, but pretty much they're all pretty similar. Let's be honest here, they're all pretty similar. Some have a little more features, others have other kinds of things, but at the end of the day, pretty much all Headless CMSs, the assets, they're managed pretty much in a similar way. So what I'm going to do today, I'm focusing on Contentful, Graph CMS, Content Stack, and Storyblock. I'm going to talk to you about those 4. I'm not comparing which one is better, or that's not the point here. The point here is this is how it's supported in each of these systems, and this is how you can extend those systems. That's about it. So we're going to jump in, and let me bring in, because of course, you know, like every good cooking show, I have stuff that's pre-done. There we go. Oh, okay. So I think I need to make my box a little bigger. So we'll go ahead and do that. Let's do this here. Give me a quick second, and then you will have access to this Miro board on the on-demand version as well. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to review real quickly. I'm going to go a little larger here. Let's start here with Contentful assets. And there, I've divided it into a variety of sections here. Things that an author can manually update. Things that the system automatically generates for you. If you have the ability to create folders. If there is a transformation API, and almost all of them, actually all of them here today, have a transformation API. Transformation API is ability to take a raw file or a large file and convert it on the fly without having to go into Photoshop, convert it through code, and I'll show you that in just a second, into different image sizes, put a different focus on an image, so on and so forth. If versions are supported, in other words, if you make a change, can you revert back to a previous change? And if localization is supported, okay? In other words, can you have multiple versions of the same image? When people talk about localization, they usually focus on text, but think about images, right? You may have an image that has text in the image. You may have to localize it, so you may have to have 4 images, one for each of your languages, right? So those are the things. So for Contentful, the way Contentful stores it, it'll auto-generate for you your ID, when it was published, the content type, and this is pretty standard across the board at the 4 that I'm going to talk to you about. The name of the file, size, automatically figure out the size. It'll give you a URL so you can get to that file, right? And it'll give you the width and size of that particular file. What can manually be updated is the title, description, the file is the actual file, and you can tag it. Now, this is all that you can hold in here. Today, we want to extend this to be able to add metadata, so we can add our own metadata for our company. Also, maybe we want to add our own transformations. So the way to do that in Contentful is to do it via what we call a content type wrapper. And I'm going to show you, but basically you create a content type that wraps a type media field, and then you can add all the content metadata that you want. So we'll do that. So that's for Contentful. If we go to Content Stack now, Constant Tag pretty much, as you can tell, auto-generates pretty much the same thing, fields, plus or minus. They do allow you to create folders. They have the image transformation API. They have version control, and they have the ability to localize. Oh yeah, one thing I wanted to mention here, under version control, I put limited because it looks like, and I'll show you in Contentful, but it looks like versions are kept, but we don't have access to change versions, at least not through the web app, like you do with content. However, when we build a wrapper, you will have access to versions of the wrapper, so keep that in mind. Okay, so what does Content Stack let you do? Well, manually you can add a title, description, tags. You can change the file name if you want. You can also create a permanent URL. It gives you a URL that they generate, like Contentful does. However, they also let you create a permanent URL that you can hardcode basically. And again, if we want to extend this, which we do, you have to create a content type to wrap the media field around, and then you can extend it. And like I said, they allow folders, image transformation. They do allow for versions so you can revert, including the image itself, not just the metadata around it, and localization. Alrighty, let's go to Storyblock. So Storyblock has assets as well. From the manual perspective, you're able to obviously add the file, give it a title or caption, an alternate text, and copyright information. And then again, if you want to extend it, you have to create a content type wrapper, extend that, wrap that field, and then you'll be able to extend it with whatever else you want. And we're going to extend it, so hang on in just a second because we're going to do that. But from the auto generation perspective, again, if you look at this, it's pretty standard across the board. They all pretty much store the same kind of information. They do allow you to do folders. They have an image transformation API. I did not see versions and Storyblock. If this is a mistake on my part, my apologies, and we'll create an update to this, but I did not see version control in the media itself. Now, we're going to, with a wrapper, you can have versions in there. And the same with localization. I did not see localization. I looked it up in the documentation. I couldn't find it there. If I'm wrong, of course, I'll correct this. But I just, through my research, I couldn't find either of those. But regardless, with a wrapper, you'll be able to have that. And then finally, Graph CMS. Again, auto-generated. You can see pretty much similar, maybe a couple of extra fields, but in general, they're all the same across the board. They don't have folders. they do have an image transformation API, they do have versions, and they do have localization. From a manual perspective, they only allow you, or they only offer the ability to add a media. However, when you extend the Graph CMS asset, you're not creating a wrapper. You actually can go into the system asset and add fields there. So when you add new asset, all your new fields will show up there. So you can extend it. So they take a different approach. Instead of creating a wrapper, they allow you to go to the system object, the media object, and actually extend it directly there. So, okay, so that's it. Oh, the other thing I wanted to mention, because I believe with Contentful I put folders none, but you can create views, which are kind of similar to folders. The only difference is that your views are going to be mixed up with your content views, your asset views and your content views will be all mixed up. So in a way you can create folders, but it's not true folders. Just I wanted to mention that. So this will be available in the on-demand version, so you'll be able to review it. But you can see that in general, your auto-generated are going to be pretty similar. And then your manually updated by the author, plus or minus, these three are pretty similar with the exception of Graph CMS, which only doesn't offer any out of the box because you can extend it directly. Okay. So what are we talking about? Why do we want to extend this? Well, let's say you upload a file in Contentful, you create a title description file, but what if you have other meta tag? You want to tag it, not just with like your own tags, but maybe you have different meta tag within your company that says use external